Welcome to Grawlix Nights, the Grawlix Podcast live show. I'm Randy.
Melanie.
And I'm Jesse.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? We got an exciting show. Hey, Melody, how do you feel about when I porky pig?
I hate to dislike it when anybody pigs. Sorry, and then I go do it a little bit.
That's awesome.
That's a thing that comes up often when we're editing podcasts. And then I realize, I almost have a little bit of Porky Pig built into my intro, the awkward segment. Hey, what's going on? So, okay, real quick, before we get totally derailed, we'll talk a little bit about what we've been watching, I'm assuming. And then mainly tonight is a TV and movie, it's an entertainment news headline episode. Not a whole lot of new stuff to talk about. So we'll hit up some, there's some spin-offs being talked about, some remakes, some almost was, a little bit of Beetlejuice 2 talk. But first, how are you two doing?
I'm all right.
Doing all right.
Good. Also, and was purely out of curiosity, but I got this work in. So I recently revamped the Electronic Media Collective podcast network site.
Oh,
and
look at that. Just like in a window inside of a window inside of a window. Oh, it just keeps going. Look at that.
Well, it looks weird now because you can see it. But obviously we have our audio stuff, but if you're a subscriber to the audio feed, we haven't posted a new episode for a little while.
Yeah.
But we stream like weekly almost. So I finally did the thing where it's not good for replays, but if you go to electronicmediacollective.com, that's not what I want. I don't want to go behind the scenes. And we happen to be streaming live. You can actually catch our live stream there.
Wow.
On the homepage or on our Grawlix podcast page on our podcast network. I'd like to be able to do that for more shows because like Movie Madhouse is kind of in the same boat as us. They stream weekly, but they don't,
They don't really put out audio
post a lot of episodes
anymore.
Right. Hey, Maddie D, what's going on? Yeah, it was internet inception.
Whoa.
Speaking of Maddie D, since he's here, also be sure to check out new podcast series. This has not updated with episode 2 yet. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's not out yet. But yeah, I wasn't trying to promote off the bat, but I wanted to mention the live stream thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what we do. That's what we do now.
I mean, realistically, or you could just be on social media when we happen to be streaming, and that's probably more plausible than going to the Electronic Media Collective website at 8:30-ish.
No. You need to bookmark that and put it in your Google Chrome group. That's what you got to do. Do that. And then when you load up your Chrome, it's just right there. Boom, it's right there. There we are.
Okay, episode 2 comes out of Middle-Aged Movie Reviews comes out this Saturday. And speaking of, since we're talking about that, last week we didn't have an episode.
Right.
And partially because Jesse was busy and partially because I hopped over to Maddie D's new podcast, Middle-Aged Movie Reviews, or MAM Reviews. I really love the abbreviation. MAM Reviews. Like, what is that show? It sounds like it'd be like... It's not sexist, because a ma'am is, and like
no,
just
that's a
women
classy broad right there.
Yes.
I had to go that far, didn't I? Yeah.
Matty DC making sure to record on Tuesdays so that he doesn't steal all the host.
Hey, there we go. That's a gentleman right there.
But yeah, I was recording an episode of that'll be out in the future. We talked about Run Lola Run. It was quite the discussion. I met his co-hosts for the first time, and they have quite the dynamic. You'll see what I mean. Hey guys, what have you been watching? Hey Maddie D, also if you're still in the chat, what have you been watching or consuming or reading? Been reading any comics?
I've been watching a lot of Asian shows.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I don't know. I'm not really. Avatar: The Last Airbender we've been rewatching, and then something
don't
on
think it's-
Netflix that I can't remember the name of.
I feel like Avatar: The Last Airbender is Asian inspired
Asian adjacent.
because I think it's an American production.
It
I'm
might
sure
be.
it's from
Yeah.
Nickelodeon.
Right.
Oh yeah.
But she's been having me watch it. Yeah, it's good. I never I've seen a bit of it here or there, but I never made a point to watch it. And we're talking about the original animated series. The live action is hitting Netflix here soon. And reviews are kind of what I expected it to be. So
It's got to
I
be
don't know.
better than the movie, right? I mean, it seems like nobody liked the movie.
No, I don't think anybody's gonna like this either because why? There's no reason to make it live action. It's just gonna do all it's going to do is take away from what's already there.
But it is good. It is what it I get why we're towards the end of season 1 at this point. And like I said, this is my first watch through of it. And I get why it has such a following. And also it's one of those rare children's cartoons that actually addresses things and doesn't talk down to their audience constantly. It's kind of although if you watch it now, it doesn't hold up the same as Avatar, but the 90s X-Men animated series, I always, when I was a kid, I appreciated it because I could tell it's oh, this isn't like the other shows. This is actually just kind of treating me like an adult. Now, if you watch it now, it's not necessary. It wasn't necessarily, but it's dealing with actual topics and it has an ongoing storyline, which is not super rare in cartoons now or at the point Avatar was out, but it's more serialized than traditional kids cartoons. But Avatar so far is dealt with themes of refugees and genocide and stuff like that. And this is a Nickelodeon cartoon. I was
Dang.
wow, but it does it well. And yeah, it doesn't it's still kind of goofy, but it doesn't talk down to its audience. And I think that's really solid. I could get why adult women who live in my house have been obsessed with it and trying to get me to watch it for years and years.
Yeah. Well, and at the time, I did childcare, so all I watched was kids shows, basically. So having such a good cartoon to force the children to watch with me was great, and I really like it. So anyway,
Matty D said he liked the actor that played Aang in the M. Night Shyamalama. That's maybe is that whatever.
Shamalama.
The M. Night joint. I never watched it, but that was I don't know. It doesn't have a good reputation.
yeah, I didn't watch it, and I refuse to watch any M. Night Shyamalan unless Randy forces me to. And I also refuse to watch anything that says Avatar in the title that isn't the original Avatar: The Last Airbender.
And that includes any James Cameron joints.
Yep,
Blue people are out.
they're liars.
I refuse to watch any Avatar James Cameron movie after the first one because I don't care how much money it made. That story was lame. I don't care how horny that cat lady made you. That movie was not particularly great. Oh, okay. Good call. Matty D wasn't trying to be rude. He just didn't know how to... Right. Well, Shyamalan is... It's not a hard name to pronounce, but it's one of those where it's just I just call him M. Night, and it just avoids that. It's like Arnold.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen... Hey, Jasper, what's going on? I've seen auto captions get Arnold Schwarzenegger's name, I didn't even say it right there, very wrong and interpret it badly. And ever since then, I'm like, maybe he's just Arnold now. I'm just going to call him Arnold. I'm not going to give any auto captions or anything the chance to misinterpret that name.
So you wouldn't name your next podcast the Garlic Podcast?
Or the Grawlix podcast.
Yeah, Grawlix podcast. I don't know what the current state of like listening to podcasts on your smart device is, but we didn't make it easy on ourselves because Google, for one, Google Homes or anything or stuff like that, did not understand what a Grawlix was.
No.
Yeah, Arnold Strong. Yes, his stage name or his bodybuilding name or whatever was that that was like his first stage name, right? Yeah, that's who I'm talking about. The Governator, or former Governator. Hey guys, what you got? What do you be? Jesse, you been watching, consuming anything?
Oh, a couple things. Since you guys hit us with the Nickelodeon, I'll just piggyback that and say that I caught Mutant Mayhem, that new Ninja Turtle movie, because it's on the old Paramount Pluses.
Yeah, I was very curious about that.
Yeah, it was all right. I mean, I had heard that there was a lot of Splinter pushback because of how Jackie Chan portrays him, and it is different. I am going to say that. Like, he basically teaches the Ninja Turtles ninjutsu via like videos or whatever. Like, they just watch movies and they became ninjas. And so that is a little problematic for people who really enjoy Splinter being like, you know, a legit ninja. Mm-hmm. Jasper, get to the chopper.
I love that we've got cross comments because Maddie D is talking to Jasper, but Jasper's over, and Maddie D's on Facebook and Jasper's over on Twitch. Jasper, by the way, says he watched Madam Web. Don't do that.
I wasn't planning on it. Like, that doesn't even look like the Madam Web that I know. So it's like, if you're going to take a Spider-Man property and make a movie about that character, make sure it's that character. I don't know.
What's Sony doing? Like, why can't they?
I don't know. Why can't
make
they
a
figure
good
this
movie?
out? Like, why do you think the other Spider-Man movie does so well? Because it's kind of Spider-Man.
Well, and Marvel, right? Like,
Yeah.
Marvel's involvement, like they obviously bring a lot to the table because you could still just make a good movie. And Madam Web is, I generally will avoid reviews for a thing I haven't seen yet because I don't want to be spoiled on everything, you know?
Yeah.
But Madam Web, I'm just like, man, I still haven't watched any of the Venom movies or it's Morbin time or whatever.
Time, yeah.
Like, I haven't watched none of that, so I don't really care. So I started watching some of the reviews on YouTube of people. By all accounts, it's awful in, like, kind of baffling. It's awful, but because they clearly, like, change things constantly, and even from what I understand, a filmmaking perspective, it's just kind of poorly done in that there's certain characters, like the villains, like all of his lines are obviously overdubbed, and they clearly just changed the storyline wholesale, like after they filmed stuff. And why would you do that? Like, why? It feels like sabotaging your own movie, you know?
I feel like, yeah, like comic book movies really got a boom, right? And Sony never got the memo. Like, Sony's still making those bad comic movies from the 90s.
Early,
you know,
the
aughts, you
yep,
know, like,
yep.
oh, you know what this Daredevil scene really needs right here is a little Nickelback. Just throw a little Nickelback on the soundtrack.
Daredevil was that movie was so bad.
You know,
Yeah,
that's
no,
what I
you're
feel
right.
like Sony is making. They're like, no, we know how to make comic movies. Get out the rule book from the aughts.
Now, interesting. Jasper said there was no action up till the last 10 minutes. But interestingly, he said his kids loved it, though. Well, from what I've heard, is conceptually it's interesting. And yeah, on paper it sounds interesting.
Oh, that guy.
We got Jerry the Gnome has entered the chat. From what I understand, it's kind of more of like a thriller mystery angle in which the villain is Spider-Man. I mean, he's not really Spider-Man, but it's like a Spider-Man type character as a bad guy. And a lot of the reviews I've seen so far said that's very interesting. Like, that's a super interesting premise and potentially compelling on the surface. It's just that the movie is handled so poorly that it's just not a good movie. And like Madam Web, like, she can kind of see in the future, like, so they do. It's not quite Groundhog's Day, but they do a little bit of that. There was a Next or whatever, a Nick Cage movie where he could see just a little bit into the future.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of that kind of angle, and that sounds super interesting. It's kind of disappointing that apparently they just did not pull that off.
It sounds like they made Shaquille O'Neal's Steel.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've never seen it.
No, me neither. I've seen bits of it because it hit cable eventually. I'm just gonna start like referencing really bad movies from the aughts now. It's kind of like The Crow, Wicked Prayer.
Jerry the McGnome says next was the bomb, yo.
Oh yeah, it was Ezekiel. Yeah, which Ezekiel was like an interesting character in the comic, but only to a point. And then it was like, we don't know what to do with this guy. He's basically teaching Spider-Man to be Spider-Man, even though Spider-Man's been Spider-Man for the last 40 years.
Maybe he was Spider-Manning wrong.
He was. He wasn't embracing the totem of the spider correctly. That was JMS's big, Straczynski's big high concept, bring to the Spider Universe was to basically remake Spider-Man. And then he ended with Brand New Day. Isn't that how his run ended? It was like, hey, you know what? This has been a universally kind of dumped on run in Spider-Man. Let's just kill it all with fire.
Madam Web seems like, I'm sorry, jumping into the, it sounds like they were doing the thing that I think superhero movies should do to avoid people just proclaiming superhero fatigue. It sounded like it was trying to niche down into a different genre. I personally think that's a brilliant way to go with it at this point. It doesn't have to be knocked, even if the problem is I think people maybe are expecting a big action, knockdown, drag out. Is that the expression?
Yeah.
Superhero fight movie. So when they don't get that, they're disappointed. Or at least that's, I'm pretty sure, what the studio is concerned about. So maybe this is a case where it started as one thing, and it definitely sounds like a lot of the actors signed on for one thing, and then the studio changed it to another thing because they got scared. I don't know if that's the case. There hasn't been a whole lot of like actual... This is one of those movies where it's kind of like the first Suicide Squad movie or something, right? Where I feel like whatever stories, whether we may or may not ever get the behind the scenes stories, but whatever stories behind the making of the movie was probably infinitely more interesting than the movie turned out to be. And real quick, not to totally, let's jump topic a little bit. The other thing I've been watching, and I made Melanie watch it, was Onimusha on Netflix, which is, it's one season, anime style thing, although they do the 3D animation, but it looks fine. I'm not super wild about it, but and it's based loosely on the video game series, but I really liked it because it's got a supernatural element. They're demons and stuff and kind of zombie-like creatures, but kind of the heart of it is just like a samurai movie, and come on, I'm on board with that. Like a period piece samurai movie. And I was on board with it. And I feel like the first episode was super clunky. And the dialogue was just like, they info dumped real hard in a very unnatural way through dialogue in the first episode. And it felt like, this might not be good.
So Zack Snyder was involved.
Well, maybe in the first episode, but then he jumped out. I don't think he was involved, because then the subsequent episodes actually focus quite. I mean, plot of course, but actually focus quite a bit on character interactions, and that's the thing. Like it's kind of a road movie in that a small group gets assembled, and then you travel with them to do this thing on this adventure. They need to go here and do this thing. And so the series is like traveling with them and things happen.
Yep.
But the characters aren't like the most deep. Some of them are kind of two-dimensional, but it's a lot of character stuff. I mean, when you put a group of characters together, maybe part of what's interesting about that is how they interact with each other and not just like action all the time.
And also, it helps in this movie's case, at least, they made you care about a character before they killed them off, and then you were like, oh, that sucks. That guy that I just got to like is now dead, rather than them just being like, yeah, you were supposed to like that guy, like a lot of movies tend to now.
Just killing them off and then slow motion and music is what tells you should have had emotional connection with that character instead of actually building emotional connection. I'm sorry, I'm just reading jumping back on comments. Jerry the Gnome Maddie D says, what they need to do is glom on to some classic pulp and step away from comics. Let's see some Flash Gordon or Doc Savage.
Doc Savage!
So, have you seen the new Indiana Jones?
See, that's the thing. How do you approach that? Do you grab those characters and then like totally modernize them? Or do you do the like campy throwback to that era? Because I feel like the campy throwback to that era rarely does well in a way that a movie studio is going to want it to do.
Right.
Doc Savage is timeless. You can be him at any time and period.
That's probably true. I mean, I think, but like a lot of times what they'll do is they'll try to period piece this, but they have to period piece it in such a woke new way, and then it just comes off feeling disingenuous.
Mm-hmm.
Did you just use woke unironically? Jesse, you got to be careful, man.
I know. Right.
No, okay. You're making me break one of my rules. Is in that you can't take people who use the word woke on ironically seriously. But I get your point though, because when they do a period piece, but then they modernize it in a way where it's like that's not how it would be, and part of that is in handling it more woke. And I'm trying to think of an example of this. There was something not long ago, I can't remember what it was, where like it's fine, whatever it was fine, but it's like that doesn't really make sense because I don't know.
Yeah.
Certain time periods in like America or whatever,
We're
it's
not
going to be
good.
the most. It's not going to be the most multicultural.
Yeah.
So when you do
bad.
a period piece and everything's fine and super multicultural in like the 50s or 60s or 40s or something. 60s is different, but like it seems weird. But let's sidestep that conversation.
I think it's a great idea in theory, and I'd love to see more of that. Yeah, and it's like, why isn't it? Because aren't a lot of those characters aren't they considered fair use? Aren't they considered public domain now? Or am I wrong about all that?
I'm not sure. I feel like Flash and Doc I feel like they haven't yet. I feel like they haven't hit.
What about John Carter?
Otherwise,
like, how did Disney get John Carter of Mars?
John Carter was pretty old though. Like that was super old. I'm pretty sure that predates that other stuff. But I don't think Doc Savage and Flash are that old. I don't think they've fallen because otherwise you'd see.
How old is that old?
I mean, I guess
at least
Steamboat Willie is just barely in,
Okay, yeah, no, because I've read a Doc Savage book from the 40s, so.
Yeah, no. Well, and books like Winnie the Pooh, for example, the book fell into public domain. So it's going to be different. But you can't necessarily depict it in the way that, I mean, Disney didn't own it initially, but the way that Disney now owns the red shirt, that specific look, they still own that. But that's technically like a different version than the book character.
Right. And they kind of are. They kind of are. That Eeyore in the book is kind of a jerk.
That's unfortunate, because Eeyore is the best.
Oh, he's still the best, but he's like the best in a way jerkier way. He's just
Interesting.
Like, he's like both nihilistic and also like kind of pompous. It was just like, well, not everybody has a brain like we do, Christopher Robin. So it's like, I don't know. He's talking trash at the same time that he's miserable all the time.
Well, that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to derail the conversation, but there was one thing specifically I really wanted to touch on about Onimusha before I moved on, and it's that I can't remember the actor's name. They use the likeness of, what is his name?
Who?
The main character in the Onimusha series. I'm probably saying it weird. But they based his likeness on... Hold on.
Flasha.
Toshiro the guy who played Yojimbo, or the lead in Yojimbo, the lead character in this animated series, they based his likeness on him, which is really weird. But even like kind of the mannerisms where he walks around with his arms in the side of his like sleeves, and then he'll take it out and he does lots of like, I don't know, scratching his head, and just like they clearly based it on how he would portray, like the character from Yojimbo.
So is it just like the casting is close to that, or did they legitimately like AI and change
No,
it?
I mean,
Okay.
they just, so it's like,
Like Liu Kang is clearly Bruce Lee.
oh, they would have definitely had, I feel like they would have definitely had to pay whoever owns the rights to his likeness, his family or whoever it is, because
Right.
that dude died in 97 apparently. It's clearly like, because it's an anime look, but it's where they obviously use 3D models to do it. And it's not like a super anime exaggerated style. It's more realistic in like proportions and stuff. And they clearly modeled it after the guy. It's not necessarily like, I mean, technically it is computer generated imagery, but it's not like CGI James Dean or deep fake whoever. It's just like, we made this 3D model look like him, and I'm assuming they got the rights to use his likeness.
So like when they made Nick Fury basically Samuel L. Jackson in the Ultimate Comics. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they did make Nick Fury Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Well, whatever. We don't have to get into that. It's interesting, the idea of doing modern cartoons, but using the likeness of actors that have passed away. And I'm assuming getting permission to do so. How is that different? Because I feel like it's not looked at the same as CGI James Dean.
Because it's not. Because it's a cartoon. That's why.
It falls more into fair use.
Yeah, you can make a caricature of an artist, or not an artist, an actor or something, and it's not the same. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to have what's it called, where you change their names and it's a grandpa and his nephew. You know, traveling.
Oh,
in
Rick and
space.
Morty.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right. Or I don't know, man. Old Looney Tunes cartoons and stuff used to do that all the time, where you'd see like these. Especially there were these two comedians. I can't think of their names offhand, but they'd like show up as cartoon characters. I don't think it was actually them, but they were cartoon characters, obviously modeled after celebrities at the time. And like as a kid, you know, at our age and anybody younger than us, we know those actors through those cartoons, through the like depiction, the whatever parodies of those actors in cartoons.
Like Freakazoid would just slip into a Jerry Lewis impression, just randomly.
We were talking about something similar to this just I don't know if it was last night or the night before, but how we were complaining about commercials, really. But we were talking about how like kids and stuff, when they grow up, their commercials are going to be, you know, the ads that we get on YouTube and stuff. And then that led into, or maybe this was a different discussion even, them using references that we use all the time as if but not knowing where it's coming from. That's just like, that's just a saying. I didn't know it came from a movie or, you know, from something else. And, They'll
just randomly get wistful about Grammarly ads.
Yeah.
You're like,
Right.
man, do you remember those Grammarly ads and how great they were?
Well, I had a video going. We were going to eat and then watch a show or whatever. And Melanie sat down. I had a video had been going. And I was like, yeah, it's 1995 commercials. It's a 30-minute video of just 1995 commercials.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, does that make you feel nostalgic or something? And I was like, I hate that it does, but it totally does. It's weird that, like, because commercials suck. Nobody likes commercials, but I mean, go find commercials from when you were growing up. They're on YouTube, I guarantee it. You could find a block of it. If you grew up during the VHS era, it'll even have that like VHS quality because it's just VHS rips. Also, who was collecting huge blocks of commercials on VHS?
On purpose.
Anyway.
Apparently, it seemed like it was on purpose, you know?
Right. I guess a lot of these channels probably just go rip like VHSs and then just pull commercials out. But yeah, that got us on the thing of like, well, what are commercials like? What's the nostalgic commercials for kids today? I feel like that would suck because Melanie also pointed out it'd be like NordVPN or whatever the like random.
Oh, man.
Bones
Bones Coffee.
Yeah.
Whatever the like random company that bought all the ads for a couple months on YouTube,
Right.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
Was it a Dollar Shave Club or whatever?
Right?
Yeah.
Yep. Weird, but I don't know. Are they still going to have that nostalgia for the commercials if those commercials pop up? Probably, I guess. I don't know. Ty Lopez standing in his garage talking about knowledge is kind of burned into my head already. And that's a purely YouTube commercial thing. Yeah.
That's
I guess it
funny.
depends on whether they're skippable or not.
Right.
I did a deep dive on Christmas or end of the year commercials, and it's like, oh man, there's like a very special breed of commercial there where it's like, you know, think about all the Christmas specials we used to like have, and they would just be like, hey, Academy Award winning Amy Grant performs her rendition of Silent Night in a very special Christmas special. It's special.
Very special Christmas special. I love, dude. That's got to be the name of if we do another Christmas special. It's gonna be a very special Grawlix Christmas special.
There we go.
I love that.
In Coming Home for the Holidays, the Grawlix podcast.
Dude, you can find it on YouTube, but also if you like find yourself randomly scraping around, bumming around archive.org for whatever reason, looking for VHS rips of classic Christmas commercial broadcasts, where commercials included is a bonus. Those are out there.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it.
The crappier the VHS.
With authentic commercials still intact.
Yeah. Commercials included. That's like, that goes in the title. Commercials included. VHS, a VHS just about to disintegrate, played back on a VHR on its last, a VHS on a VCR player on its last legs. Just the worst quality you can get. That's what you want. Maximum nostalgia.
It even has the warbles in there. It's like for a second, and then you're like, oh, not now. This is the best part.
But importantly, those are ripped at ultra high quality, and it's like 10 gig download.
Oh, of course, take forever, especially on archive.org. Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, they're gonna start moving back to physical medium, since it's more energy efficient.
Really? We might get a Blockbuster video back?
Yeah, maybe.
Netflix start sending us DVDs again?
It's interesting because we were talking about this a little bit last night. This is Grawlix. Really, this might just be the ramble episode.
Might be.
That's fine.
But it's all Grawlix related. That's why our banter is fine. It's related to this thing. It's interesting because this isn't the news story you're going to do, is it, Melanie? Or
no,
the science
not.
story? Okay. Melanie was reading an article, and I've seen it a couple places where they developed technology that basically, like, they can make DVDs or CDs or Blu-ray. I don't know if it'd be considered a different kind of disc, but where you could store, like, 1 million movies on this thing. It's just, like, incredibly dense data capacity.
Like petabyte or something.
Yeah, like tons of data. The article, after you mentioned it, Melanie, after you'd mentioned it, I'd seen an article headline about new disc could store 1,000 copies of Baldur's Gate 3, which, I mean, makes games are huge, right? Like, new games are huge, so that's something, yeah. I also, though, remember a similar story from, like, 12 years ago that just never seemed to, like, become a thing because people moved away from physical media, obviously. And that's, like, I think I've said it even recently, it's frustrating. Like, I get, like, digital media is super convenient, but it sucks because it stalled out progress of physical media. We should be well beyond Blu-ray at this point, let alone talking about DVDs.
Well, nothing is faster than that, than having the physical, like, it's like, oh, well, if I'm going to download Baldur's Gate 3, that's probably going to take a while if I don't have super duper high internet, right?
Right.
Or you could have the disc, and if you have a super big disc where you could have all these copies of Baldur's Gate on there, then you load that into your machine, it pulls the data, and you're done.
But the big thing in the article was talking about was servers and whatnot. They all take up energy. And, we're trying to reduce our energy use as much as we can, or we should be trying to. And besides that, stuff gets damaged and whatever, which, not that that CDs or DVDs or whatever wouldn't either, but it's dumb to rely on having it just in one space, like, the cloud or, on a disk drive. It's better to have copies of it saved somewhere where it can not get damaged, hopefully.
It's interesting because we're seeing specifically at this point in time, because we're seeing, Best Buy's got rid of physical, like, DVDs, Blu-rays, stuff like that. Walmart is angling to do so, games included, movies, whatever. They're angling to get rid of physical media. Companies will straight up not be producing, like, a movie will come out or whatever, and they're just not going to release it physically. Sony is going to be taking over, like, Disney struck some deal where Sony's going to be producing their physical media for Disney now. So, like, Disney's like, we don't want to mess with it. And they're going to farm it out to Sony, which is weird.
Crazy, yeah.
That's a recent story I read. Australia just doesn't like. Everywhere's just like, nah, we don't need discs anymore. I don't know. So it's weird that like the companies are getting rid of it finally. I'm sure as they're concerned, but at the same time, we're seeing cloud storage services cracking down. Like they're obviously kind of hit a limit. Not a limit, but they're like, I don't know. It's becoming cost prohibitive to be as free as they have been with their cloud storage. Streaming networks or streaming services are kind of an issue, and they have a habit of just scrapping things so they don't have to pay licensing or for a tax write-off or whatever. At the same time, they're upping their costs because all tech sectors seem to be doing that. So it's weird that, and so I do see a lot more pushback of like arguments from people for, this sucks. We need physical media at least, like because you can't trust this stuff.
Yeah, you can't. When you buy this copy and it'll be yours forever. Yeah, or until you take down the service, and then something that I paid for that should be mine forever is gone, and I don't have access to it ever again. It's crap.
Yeah, that's been an ongoing thing, and like really highlighted recently with Funimation streaming service shutting down, which has been coming for a long time, and they're just going to migrate their users to Crunchyroll because it's owned by the same company at this point. But you could buy digital copies to own through Funimation, and they even said, despite their terms saying otherwise, because anywhere you can buy a digital thing, their terms specify you're just leasing it. You're leasing access to it.
Right.
But they actually did use the you could buy it and keep it forever terminology in their marketing at some point. So people are like, well, that didn't work out, did it? Because those purchases don't transfer to Crunchyroll. Those are just going to be gone. So if you bought anything on Funimation digitally, it's just going to be gone. You can't access it again. Tough luck.
Maybe the most interesting, not interesting, but another layer of this, and we've kind of been talking about it lately on the stream. Hasbro and their issues with Dungeons and Dragons lately.
Yeah.
Well, they most recently recategorized things, right? So the division that used to be in charge of putting out their books is very telling the direction they've been wanting to go for a while, and they just kind of have been forestalled because everybody freaked out the last time they did anything with their property, right? Like 5th edition, they were going to change things so that you couldn't use the open gaming license, and that really backfired on them. So they pulled back on everything they were kind of doing for whatever would be the next edition. Well, they've basically restructured the company now, and the person that was in charge of the physical media, the books, right, is now a person that is very clearly all their work experience is revolving around digital rights management, that kind of stuff. So What are they doing? They're doing what they've wanted to do for a long time, and this is all speculation. They haven't officially come out and said that they're doing this, but it's pretty clear they are. They're going to go to a subscription model, and rather than buy a bunch of books, you're going to lease a bunch of books, and it's all going to be digital. And it's going to be, it's going to be like having your copy of Outlook 360 or whatever,
I hate that, man.
I do too.
Everything's got to be subscription as a service. It's got to be a live service model. I hate that.
I feel like that's got to be the tipping point. That's not understanding what your product is, That's just not what D&D is.
Right.
It's, I guess first off, it's that sweet reoccurring chunk of cash from all your users. Yeah. And if they don't want to pay it, then they don't use your products anymore. That's what that is. But it's kind of baffling to me because you're right. They don't understand. Yeah. They don't understand their fan base, because you can't tell me that. I mean, I'm sure selling digital crap, digital only, is definitely much cheaper than selling physical products. But collecting every
edition,
D&D is kind of expensive to get into, a little bit. It's an investment because you have to buy books and dye and things, products. But that also means you have to buy books and dye and things and products. Like that's, if you're going to get into it, you're going to be giving them money. And like DMs, sure, like a book will come out and they'll have that book and then they don't have to buy it again. But like there's always the expansions, the extra stuff they add on. I guess in a way they've been doing DLC before DLC was like
absolutely, yeah,
downloadable,
And so like it feels like this would even be cutting off your hand to spite your foot kind of thing. It's like, okay, so yeah, we're going to have to continue to put out products in order to justify having people pay a monthly fee for this. And I can see what the selling point will be. It'll be like, listen, if you subscribe to this, you get access to our tome of stuff, and every new thing will be added into your account, da-da-da-da-da. But also, it's like, okay, so every time that we get a new edition of D&D, well, you'll have the most recent stuff, right? Because it's going to be part of the subscription model or whatever. But also, you don't own it. You don't own anything. And like part of the appeal of D&D is like, I'm going to pull this book off of my shelf, and this is the book that has all of the spells or whatever. I mean, like it's literally like opening a spell book when you have it, and you just will never capture that feel with your iPad. You just won't.
Well, the other thing you kind of touched on there, you don't own it. There's people that still play the very, very early editions of D&D.
Yeah.
But if you can only access that through their subscription service and they're going to want to push whatever, edition is current, chances are those early editions, boom, jettisoned. You can't access them anymore.
Right.
Just like with video games now. Like there's, and movies and TV shows.
Or will they crack down on that market too? Because like you can buy a lot of PDFs of the old D&D books right now, but once that's all part of their like pseudo digital streaming situation, will you be able to get any of that stuff anymore?
Oh no, I don't see why it would benefit them to do so.
Right.
Really? Yeah, that's a bad deal. That's a bad deal. It must, number wise, they must figure it's going to work out in the long run. But you see it with TV and with music. I feel like while the company that runs the streaming service, I'm sure benefits, it devalues the actual product itself.
Right.
And therefore, like people that in the case of D&D, I'm sure they hire people out or it's contract work or whatever. But like TV shows or musicians or anybody that creates that actual content, because people have to create that content for those services, it devalues their work, and they ultimately kind of get screwed out of the deal, I think. So I feel like in the long run, it's not a good deal for most people involved, except maybe the company that owns the IP or the streaming service.
Yeah.
Time to hit garage sales for old D&D handbooks.
Oh man, you didn't have to talk me into that. Twist my arm.
And I guess if people were playing it mainly on, maybe they are. Maybe there's a lot of like remote play. I mean, it makes sense.
Virtual
but
tabletops is a big thing, and roll D20 or whatever it's called is a big thing. But like, there's a lot of people that still just play it traditional because there's nothing like it,
Right, and having the books, like, it's an investment, but that's so much easier than having like to scroll on your device. Because I think I had like the little bit of experience I have. We had books, and then there was some stuff like I'd download and have to use my phone.
Oh yeah,
that's a pain. That's a pain. It's so much easier to have a book.
I have a ton of the Pathfinder stuff on Humble Bundle, and I love having it. I do love having it digitally, but also when I play, I still have a core rule book. Like, yes, I have that in PDF, but I'm gonna buy the real thing, or I'm gonna buy a used copy at the very least, because I gotta have that book in my hands. That's the one book I'm gonna flip through.
I like this discussion, and I think it's very Grawlix relevant. But in the spirit of trying to keep the episode shorter, I'm going to run through these news stories real quick, just so I didn't lie to people when I said we're doing news.
Yeah.
Paramount's Ferris Bueller spinoff, lands director David Katzenberg. I know that name now that I've said it out loud. I can't think of what else he's done. But anyway, so there's going to be a Ferris Bueller's Day Off spinoff movie. Have you heard anything about this?
Ferris Bueller's Day at Work?
No. Well, when I first read the headline, I was like, oh, is it like, Matthew Broderick as he's older? And I like Matthew Broderick still. And he does some stuff once in a while, but an old Ferris Bueller, I don't like that.
Oh, why?
Well, that's not what they're doing.
Weekend at Bueller's. Just have him dead. Just
combine it with
Yes.
Okay.
I'm
you
in.
combine Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Weekend at Bernie's, I might be on board with that.
Yeah.
Well, no, this is going to be called Sam and Victor's Day Off, and apparently it's a direct follow-up, and it's going to follow the two valets that took what's his name's dad's car for a joyride. It's their story.
Oh.
I mean, that's at least an interesting angle. It's like, oh, okay, it's not what I would have expected, but also
No.
I mean, they're obviously going to have to recast because I think one of those actors is passed away a while back, and they're older now. And from what I understand, this is literally like this is what they did that day. So it's like going to be period piece and follow those characters on their adventure with the dude's dad's vehicle. What a weird take. I was like, what?
Yeah.
So-
Strange.
Could be great. Could be bizarre and nonsensical, I guess. It could be, dude, where's my car? Set in the 80s.
Right, and that's probably kind of like the pitch, right? I mean, the premise is that's fine. It's weird It's weird to have the connection, but okay, that's fine. I imagine they're going to repurpose some footage. Maybe we'll probably see some old footage of I don't know. Weird. Michael Keaton says Beetlejuice 2 felt handmade after years of being in front of a green screen for superhero movies.
Oh, yeah, I suppose it would. I suppose it did. Actually, I had to put him in makeup and stuff.
Right. And apparently he was saying, and this is from IndieWire, and probably from a review or an interview from some other rag. But basically, yeah, like him and Tim Burton made the decision very early on, very limited. Like there's gonna be a focus on practical, very limited on digital, and which is fine. And I get why. Hopefully we'll get a good Michael Keaton performance, like that. He seems to actually care. Not that his performances are bad, but you can kind of tell when he just doesn't care.
Sandworms, you hate them, right?
But that is exciting to me because one, like the aesthetic is part of what's great about the especially Beetlejuice, but like the earlier Tim Burton movies where like it had a certain physical aesthetic. Sandworms were like, I'm assuming they were like stop motion or something, but they just had a certain look. And I loathe the look of Tim Burton's overly digital, especially the Disney movies he did.
Oh yeah,
They look terrible. I hate it. Like he goes like the weird super saturation, ultra digital, everything, and most of the actors are CG. Like Alice in Wonderland was awful. I hated that. So a Tim Burton physical, yeah, I'm all for it. Linda Hamilton appearing in Stranger Things season 5 ruined the show for her. She's gonna be in Stranger Things season 5.
Oh,
And apparently she's not gonna be able to watch it because she doesn't watch things she's in.
oh.
So she said,
I don't know how to feel about that. It's kind of like wah.
right. Well, framing it as like being in streets. Oh man, those Fremont trains. I kind of miss it.
Oh yeah.
Framing it as it like ruined the show for her. I mean, okay, sure, but you could have said no, or you
Right.
wanted the paycheck. So but whatever. Linda Hamilton's going to be in season 5. That's probably not new news for people, but I hope she runs around asking where's John. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed some comments, but Katzenberg was a producer for the two It movies, the more recent It movies. Okay.
Well, that felt like
okay.
the 80s then, so or the 70s. I don't know.
Right. He's got okay. He's probably around our age.
Yeah.
He's got a soft spot for that certain time period, obviously. I mean, hey, if you're gonna have people doing nostalgia remakes or sequels, it should be people that would actually feel the nostalgia for those things instead of just like, a checklist like what was popular 30 years ago, and now adults of a certain age would want to see this.
Right.
And then the other thing is Lionsgate's moving some things around. The main one being The Crow, the new version, the new Crow, which will, speaking of It, I believe stars the guy that played the clown in It. I can't remember his name offhand.
Oh, Skarsgård. Is it Bill?
Yeah. I think he's the title character, but that's getting moved up, and it'll be released June 7th of this year, so not too far off. I'm very curious as to what that'll be. And Mel Gibson almost starred in Schindler's List as the main guy, the Schindler.
The Schindler.
He wanted the role, and they were like, "No, we don't want you."
No.
I'm pretty sure that was well before his like recorded outbursts and various racist and sometimes anti-Semitic things that he would say. But yeah, I just thought that was an interesting thing. That's it. That's all the stories.
Oh, that's amazing.
It is amazing.
It is amazing. You know what else is amazing?
What?
Psychology. But there's a new psychology, or a new analysis by the Annual Review of Psychology, that was released, and it was basically about the acceptability of studies from the past. And over the last decade, researchers have discovered that many studies were unreliable and unrepeatable. So, and that trying to test old theories, most of them don't hold up, apparently. So they're trying to improve that by making everybody now all the researchers have to pre-register or publicly declare their intentions with the analysis. So basically, it's like you have to have a hypothesis before you can start an experiment. It's basically kind of what they're saying. And I'm like, well, yeah, isn't that kind of like the way it works? But I guess not. But that's how it's going to be working from now on.
You have to like declare that to the participants, because that feels like the observer effect or whatever. Like if they know what's going on, then how are you going to get good data?
No, it's to the scientific community, I guess. Maybe if you're doing it for a school or something like that, to the school, you just have to make known that this is what you're aiming at, rather, because the way that they had been doing it is they would do stuff, gather all this data, and then they'd look through the data to figure out what they could eke out of it, and then make that their finding. And that's
right.
You can,
so there's incentive to kind of like put things together that aren't necessarily true, but they need to get some results out of it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm gonna all these people that did this said this one thing, so that's what we're gonna say is that this means that, but that's not the way that science works. So so they're gonna not so now they can't really do that anymore. I think that was basically it. Oh, and then it's kind of an issue right now. People are fighting about it because they're like, well, this discredits some studies that obviously are, well, maybe not obviously true, but that probably are true, or at least have merit. Aren't gonna, people aren't gonna be able to follow those anymore. It's not gonna be valid. Yeah. So that's sucks. Whatever. Getting rid of all of that stuff. But But then, on the other hand, everybody's like, yeah, but no, then we know for sure that the things that we follow are real and true.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's science.
We can avoid stuff like the Myers-Briggs personality thing.
Yeah, so it's
right.
It's a hot debate right now in the science communities.
I mean, then just read. I mean, I'm sure there's some tests that they're like, we don't want to try to do that again.
People don't want to have to pay for the studies, is what it is.
Well, suck it up. Pay for it. I don't know what to say about that.
Well,
we pay for funding goes to a lot of real stupid things, and
Well,
not everything has to be for profit.
Some of it was like, one of the examples they used was meditation. Meditation helps with anxiety and depression and whatever these things. Well, you can't say that now because there's no proof. Because there's no studies that are about that, have been peer reviewed and validate that they can count.
Somebody is going to fund a new meditation study because there's a whole industry, and we tangentially, Melanie, work with that industry very often. That makes a lot of money off of meditation, so somebody will fund that one. But I see, I see what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You're reading the comments, eh?
Yeah. I think there's only one Scars. No, how many Skarsgårds are there?
Well, there's
only one.
Yeah.
I have
Is
no
there?
idea.
Oh yeah.
I mean, in acting, not just in the world. Okay, no, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there was the guy that was in True Blood. There's the one, there's Bill Skarsgård. There's a surprising amount of Skarsgårds. There's the one that played Floki in Vikings series, who was like the least attractive of the Skarsgårds that I've seen so far. And that was before I knew about Bill, because Bill's kind of a lanky, creepy looking little dude. But then
All right.
Floki is just like got crazy hair, and I don't know.
Okay, we're a new episode. We're gonna do another episode later. Here's an episode idea. It's gonna be Jesse. Jesse. It's gonna be a wrangle. Jesse ranks the Skarsgårds, and it's gonna be one of those like SAB, like the tier lists that YouTubers do. It's gonna be you, and you're just gonna.
I'd like to invite you all to a very special Grawlix podcast, The Nordic Baldwins.
The Nordic Baldwins.
From A to Z. Ranked in order of hotness for your pleasure. You're welcome, America. And Iceland. I don't know why it's like an old-timey NPR show.
We've got a 10th anniversary podcast anniversary coming up. It should just be like... Each of us will get our own segment of some random thing, and that's your segment.
The Nordic Baldwins. Oh, welcome to the Skarsgård cast.
I think that's a great idea.
Scarguardians of the Galaxy is what I like to call them.
Yeah. I love that. Tune in for the Guardians of the Galaxy ranking list.
It's even better when Randy says it awkwardly.
So would you say this Skarsgård is A tier or S tier?
Oh my. I give him 3 out of 5 Icelands. That's what I give him.
Hey, thanks, Matty D. Jerry the Gnome. He said, 10 years. Wow, congrats. Actually 10 years. I know I've been saying for like 3 years it's been like 12 years, but it's actually 10 years this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, nope, not next episode. Next episode will be closest maybe, but probably the episode after that will be like 10 years. Man. Ooh, I don't know why Pacino popped in my head. 10 years.
It needed to be in tens.
Yeah. I mean, we might have been talking about something like that before, and I'll tell you what.
Maybe.
It's taking this long is probably not going to get wrapped up in the next 2 weeks, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, right. No.
The majority of it might have been recorded like 3 years ago, but
It doesn't even sound like us. We're going to need to train the AI on that version of us. Like our voices have changed.
right.
I got too many nodules on the vocal cords.
Oh no.
Can't do it.
If we had to do like punch-ins, I'll make a point so it sounds so obvious where the punch-in is. We'll even like randomly punch in things that don't need it. Anyway, I should rebroadcast. Maybe
It
set up
is
a
a
live.
Blinkatron. Let us get to the Blinkatron. We sound like like K9 or something. Affirmative, master.
It will happen one day. I swear. All right. Yes. Let's. I think that's a good show.
Yeah.
Everybody.
It was fun. We had fun.
Yeah.
It was good to have people in the chat.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes. Yes. Man, I miss it. I miss having people in the chat. It's been a little slow. Oh, we got claps. Thank
Got
you.
the claps.
Oh my gosh. Comics with My
Heyo.
Kids is hitting episode 92. That's crazy.
Eventually, it'll be comics with your kids, but they'll be adults.
Yeah.
It'll be
Right.
like How I Met Your Mother, how the initial season they were little, and then like as they got older, it was like, these kids are clearly 20. They're not kids anymore. The show's
But it's
been
still-
on for 9 years.
They're still his children.
That's right.
What? Comics with my geriatric dad.
All right.
Okay, Jesse, you got anything you want to mention before we bounce out of here?
Nope. Get some humble bundles. Always that.
Yep.
And use StreamYard.
Yeah.
StreamYard. I need to check my calendar. Sometime before long, we might have to revert to a certain old banner. Been about a
really?
year
Yeah.
since we had
Okay.
this like nice subscription. Yeah, StreamYard. If you you want to do a live stream to multiple destinations, do a webinar, have guests on in an easy manner. You can do local recordings. It legitimately is kind of the easiest like to use service of this kind that I've used. Even some of their competitors, I have beef with a lot, and StreamYard has not really done me wrong yet. Anyway, if you want to try StreamYard for free, go to StreamYard.com.
I love how you had to throw in the. I love how you had to throw in the yet. Really haven't done me wrong yet. We'll give them time.
I gotta put it. Listen, you gotta put a little like escape clause in everything.
Yeah,
Everything.
clearly.
By the way, Maddie D, you can get multi-track recordings. It's on their Pro plan, I believe. One of their plans. It's not the lowest plan, the like cheapest plan. I don't know the proper way to put that. But you can get separate multi-track recordings, and it works solid. That's the thing. Like I deal with from a different company multi-track recordings all the time. Oof, sync issues are very common.
I know what you're talking about there.
Right. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I can't guarantee, but in my experience, I have not encountered that with StreamYard. So it does local multi-track recordings.
So their most basic plan would not include that.
It would not include that. But you can still do recordings on that plan. It's just going to be all in one file or, whatever. Pre-mixed. It's going to be pre-mixed for you. Hey, let's get out of here. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks, everybody, for listening. It's been a time.
It's all pizza, baby.
Yep.
Hey, Melanie,
Yes.
got anything you want to say before we bounce out of here?
Goodbye.
Okay. I was just trying to get Melanie to chime in. I didn't want to feel like I was neglecting her at the end. I'm always like, hey, Jesse, you got anything you want to share? Because I know Melanie probably doesn't like have a thing to promote at the end.
I don't.